Mariviana was a land of beauty, prosperity, and peace. Nestled between towering mountains and vast blue oceans, the country thrived with its bustling cities and harmonious rural communities. Its economy boomed, its technology rivaled the greatest nations, and its people were proud of their history and resilience. Yet, no one in Mariviana could have anticipated the catastrophe that would soon plunge the nation into chaos. The first signs of trouble emerged in the northern province of Lystra. Residents began to fall ill with flu-like symptoms that rapidly escalated to high fevers, seizures, and uncontrollable hemorrhaging. The disease spread with a terrifying velocity, baffling doctors and scientists alike. It wasn't long before hospitals became overcrowded, and the streets were filled with desperate cries for help. The disease, later named Mors Plaga or the Plague of Death, was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Despite Mariviana's advanced healthcare infrastructure, the virus proved unstoppable. Attempts at containment failed as it spread to neighboring provinces. The government declared a state of emergency, enforcing strict lockdowns and martial law. Entire cities were quarantined, and military blockades became the new normal. The air was thick with fear as citizens isolated themselves, unsure if their next breath would be their last. Desperation led the Mariviana government to call upon the world's brightest minds for help. Laboratories worldwide raced to develop a cure, but every attempt was futile. The virus mutated rapidly, rendering treatments ineffective. Amid the rising death toll, one name stood out among the scientific community: Dr. James Cowell. Renowned for his expertise in virology and his unyielding determination, James had previously developed vaccines for some of the deadliest outbreaks in history. The Mariviana government had only one plea for him: find the cure, no matter the cost. For James, the mission was personal. He had spent his life combating invisible enemies, but this time the stakes were higher. Mors Plaga threatened to decimate humanity, starting with Mariviana. With a heavy heart and a determined mind, James accepted the challenge, fully aware that failure was not an option. As the nation's hope rested squarely on his shoulders, James prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. James knew that finding a cure required understanding the virus at its origin. Early research indicated that Mors Plaga had likely emerged from the Teravia Forest, a dense and remote jungle in Mariviana's northern region. The forest, once revered for its biodiversity, had become a death zone. The virus had infected not only humans but also animals, turning the lush wilderness into a living nightmare. Accompanied by a small team of military operatives and scientists, James set out for the Teravia Forest. The journey was fraught with danger from the start. Roads leading to the forest were littered with abandoned vehicles, and the air carried the stench of decay. The team wore protective suits, their every step a calculated move to avoid exposure to the virus. James couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. If he failed, it wouldn't just mean his death, it would mean the end of Mariviana. Upon entering the forest, the team was immediately met with hostile conditions. Infected animals roamed the area, their once docile behaviors replaced by aggressive, rabid tendencies. The thick canopy above blocked out most sunlight, creating an eerie darkness that made every sound and shadow seem menacing. Despite the challenges, James remained focused. He was searching for a specific plant, the Luminara bloom, rumored to contain antiviral properties. Local folklore suggested that this rare flower held the key to combating illnesses. As the team ventured deeper, they encountered a group of survivors who had taken refuge in a hidden cave. These individuals were malnourished and terrified, having witnessed their loved ones succumb to the virus. They warned James about the dangers ahead, but their accounts of a mysterious cursed zone within the forest only fueled his determination. Against their advice, James pressed on, knowing the answers he sought lay beyond the point of no return. Tragedy struck when the team was ambushed by a pack of infected wolves. In the chaos, James was separated from the others and injured. His protective suit was compromised, leaving him vulnerable to infection. Alone and terrified, James faced the very real possibility of failure. But as he lay hidden among the trees, clutching his bleeding wound, he made a vow to himself. He would not die here, not before finding the cure. James awoke to find himself in a small, makeshift hut. His wounds had been tended to, and his protective suit had been repaired. The person who saved him was Leona, a local herbalist who had lived in the forest long before the outbreak. Leona was skeptical of outsiders, but had recognized James from news broadcasts. She knew he was the man the country was counting on. Leona shared her knowledge of the forest and its medicinal plants. She revealed that the Luminara bloom grew in the scarred grove, a part of the forest where the virus was most concentrated. Many who had ventured there never returned, but James insisted on going. Leona reluctantly agreed to guide him, though she warned him of the risks. Their journey to the scarred grove was harrowing. They encountered infected humans who had devolved into mindless, violent beings. Leona's knowledge of the terrain and her resourcefulness proved invaluable. At one point, they came across an ancient shrine where Leona performed a ritual she believed would protect them. James, though skeptical, respected her traditions. He knew that hope, no matter how small, was a powerful force. When they finally reached the scarred grove, they found the Luminara bloom growing amidst a field of decaying corpses. The air was toxic, and the ground was unstable. James and Leona worked quickly to collect samples, but their presence attracted a horde of infected creatures. In the ensuing battle, Leona sacrificed herself to give James a chance to escape. Her final words were a plea for him to save Mariviana. James returned to the lab with the Luminara bloom, but he was physically and emotionally shattered. Leona's death weighed heavily on him, and the pressure to succeed became almost unbearable. As he began analyzing the plant, he discovered that its compounds could neutralize the virus's replication mechanism. However, synthesizing a stable formula was a monumental challenge. Days turned into weeks as James worked around the clock. He barely ate or slept, consumed by his mission. The virus continued to mutate, and James found himself racing against time. In his exhaustion, he accidentally exposed himself to a sample of the virus. Knowing he was now infected, James used his own body as a test subject. It was a gamble that could either save millions or end in failure. The first few attempts were disastrous, leaving James weaker and more ill. But as he refined the formula, he began to notice improvement. On the brink of collapse, he finally created a version of the antivirus that worked. Administering it to himself, he felt his strength return, and the symptoms of the virus vanished. The cure was real. James's breakthrough was hailed as a miracle. The antivirus was mass-produced and distributed across Mariviana. Slowly but surely, the infection rate dropped, and survivors began to recover. Cities that had been silent and desolate came back to life. The people of Mariviana celebrated James as a hero, though he humbly credited the countless others who had sacrificed along the way. Despite the victory, James knew the battle against pandemics was far from over. He used his newfound fame to advocate for global preparedness and scientific collaboration. He established the Leona Foundation, dedicated to researching infectious diseases and providing aid to vulnerable communities. The memory of those lost, especially Leona, became his driving force. Mariviana emerged from the crisis forever changed. The scars of the outbreak remained, but the nation's spirit was unbroken. As James stood atop a hill overlooking the recovering capital, he felt a sense of fulfillment. The story of Mariviana's fight against Mors Plaga was one of resilience, sacrifice, and hope, a testament to humanity's ability to overcome even the darkest of times.